Robin. Now, the ending of the lockdown in China has encouraged thousands of people to visit some of the country's best-known sites. But in one case, a surge in visitor numbers has meant the authorities are worried that the packed crowds will simply provide a new breeding ground for coronavirus. On Huangshan, it's called Yellow Mountain, in Anhui province, the authorities are banning visitors who've been in high-risk COVID-19 areas. I spoke to Kerry Allen, the BBC's China media analyst, who explained what they were doing.
They've opened themselves up again and said that visitors can come, but they're actually restricting people from both medium and high-risk areas. So these are areas at the moment where the virus is still a threat, and they're particularly in the north, in Heilongjiang, the province that borders Russia, and in the south, Guangdong province, and some areas of Beijing. So the idea is, if you're from these areas, you can't visit the mountain. One of the things that's actually been very common since a lot of people have been coming out of self-isolation, they've been flocking to these tourists, and Huangshan is notoriously anyway. It's one of the hottest tourist attractions. It's actually a UNESCO Culture and Natural Heritage Site. So it's somewhere that every national holiday people will flock to. And the government is nervous at the moment because the next upcoming holiday is May Day, the 1st of May. And that's a time where a lot of people would normally go to this mountain. They would climb it. They would see all the natural scenery. I mean, it's a beautiful area.
How are the authorities actually checking where people come from? How are they making sure that certain people are being excluded, as it were?
They're telling people they need to download an app if they want to visit the site, and they need to apply for what's known as an Ankang code, which literally translates as a health and safety code. They enter information like their ID number, which would be their passport number, and this ties into their medical history and their travel history as well, where they've come from. And it's the idea that if they're going, the authorities know in advance if they're unlikely to be safe. For example, they could have travelled through areas that are of risk, or they could be from these areas themselves. One of the things that the Huangshan area has said is, even though it's out in the countryside, people still need to wear a mask and they still need to keep a distance, and even tour groups now are restricted to 30 people.
Has China in the past got a history of controlling people in the way that they visit places and who can go and who can't go?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, I'm just thinking back to when I was living in China. It's very common that when you go to sites beforehand, there's an entrance and you have to show your ID card or your passport. But also we've seen increasingly, since people have been coming out of lockdown with the coronavirus, much more sophisticated technology to keep tabs on people. Some parks have been using drones now, and they've been going around on top of these parks. And if they spot people in gatherings or clusters of people together, the drones are telling people to stay apart.
So they are specifically using drones to police that people are social distancing.
Yes, exactly. It's crazy. I mean, I've seen all these pieces of video footage where people are going to parks and say they're trying to pick flowers, and suddenly the drone is shouting at them, you can't do this. Or if they see children running, these drones are shouting, stay away from people, or think about the people around you. You shouldn't be coming close to people. So really getting people to focus, they're not just out in the countryside, they're in an area of surveillance.
Do you get any impression about how people feel about this?
I think people have adjusted now to a new normal in China. And one of the things that is becoming common and is very much the case for lots of areas now is when people are entering, it could be a park, a shop, but they're getting used to the idea that you would wear a mask if you're going outside, you're having your temperature checked, and you're willfully handing over information about yourself. A lot of these medical codes that are tied into apps which connects to people's travel history, etc. People are willingly giving these so that they can show that they're safe and that society can get back to normal.
That's Kerry Allen, the BBC's China media.